3 in the morning, and the ballroom at the Whitmore Grand smelled like cold champagne and the particular kind of desperation that comes with a $300 million deal about to fall apart. Serena Voss had been clearing tables for 6 hours. Her feet had stopped hurting around midnight, not because they felt better, but because the pain had crossed some threshold into numbness she'd learned not to question. She stacked the last of the dessert plates onto her cart, tilted her head, and noticed the spreadsheet. Not because she was snooping, because it was wrong. The binder had been left open on the head table, one of those thick corporate things with color-coded tabs and a glossy cover that said Whitmore Capital Group, Q4 Investor Presentation. The page facing up showed a revenue projection model, and the cells in column G were off by a factor that made Serena's stomach drop the way it did when she saw a structural error in load-bearing code. She set down the stack of plates, looked at the numbers again. The error wasn't small. Someone had transposed 2 values in the debt-to-equity ratio, the kind of mistake that looks invisible until a room full of institutional investors starts asking questions, and then it looks catastrophic. Serena did not touch the binder. She stood there with her hands at her sides, doing the math in her head the way she'd learned to do it years ago, sitting at her aunt's kitchen table with a yellow legal pad while her aunt ran numbers for a small insurance brokerage out of Akron. Column G was wrong. Column K was compensating for it, which meant whoever built this model had caught the error and tried to paper over it rather than fix the source. That was the detail that made her stomach drop a second time, because that wasn't a mistake, that was a choice. The event is over. She turned around. The man standing in the doorway of the ballroom looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days, which she would later learn was because he hadn't. He was still wearing his suit jacket, charcoal gray, well cut, but his tie had been loosened sometime around 10 o'clock and never retightened. He was holding a coffee cup that appeared to be empty. He was staring at her like she was a problem he hadn't scheduled. "I'm cleaning up," Serena said. "I can see that. The kitchen staff was supposed to handle this. They went home at 2, I stayed to finish." He looked at the cart, then at the binder. Then back at her with an expression that was harder to read, not suspicious exactly, but calibrated, like a man who had learned to notice what people were looking at. "You're looking at that binder," he said. "It was open." "That's not what I asked." Serena met his eyes. She had a rule developed over 2 years of working jobs she was overqualified for. Don't volunteer information. Answer the question. Don't perform innocence. People who perform innocence look guilty. "I noticed a math error," she said. "Column G, the debt-to-equity ratio. Someone transposed the asset depreciation values, I think from the previous quarter's model." The coffee cup went very still in his hand. "Who are you?" he said. "Serena Voss. I'm on the banquet staff." "That's not what I asked either." She didn't answer that one. She went back to stacking plates because she needed this job, and she had learned, painfully, that there is a version of being right that gets you fired anyway. His name was Callum Hart. She didn't know that yet. She would find out in approximately 4 minutes, when he pulled a chair out from the head table, sat down, opened the binder to column G, and said, quietly to himself more than to her, "How did you see that?" And because she had no good answer that didn't involve explaining things she wasn't ready to explain, she said, "The numbers were sitting wrong on the page." Sitting wrong. When something's off, it looks off, even before you calculate it. She paused. "I know how that sounds. It sounds like something my CFO should have caught." He said it without particular inflection, just tired. Tired in the specific way of someone who has been hoping to be wrong and keeps being right. Callum Hart was 38 years old and had inherited Whitmore Capital Group from his father 4 years ago, which everyone in the industry knew, and which had come with the unspoken assumption, shared by his board, his investors, and approximately half of the financial press, that he was a placeholder. A family name in a nice suit, a temporary arrangement until someone more serious could be installed. What fewer people knew was that Callum had spent the last 18 months quietly restructuring the company's entire portfolio, and that the presentation scheduled for 9 o'clock that morning was either going to prove everyone wrong or confirm their worst assumptions about him. $300 million in new institutional investment, or the beginning of a very polite unwinding. He had not built the model in column G. His CFO, a man named Derek Page, who had been with the company since Callum's father's time, had built it, and Derek Page had apparently made an error, or made a choice, and Callum had not caught it, because Callum had been managing 12 other things and had trusted the numbers because that was the working arrangement. Callum trusted Derek's numbers, and Derek trusted Callum's instincts, and together they had navigated 4 years of a company that wanted to see them both fail. Serena didn't know any of this yet. She was stacking plates and trying not to look like she was listening, which was difficult because Callum Hart had opened the binder and was now doing exactly what she had done, running the numbers in sequence, and she could tell by the way his jaw tightened that he was reaching the same conclusion she had. This was intentional, he said, not a question. The correction in column K overcompensates by the exact same margin, Serena said before she could stop herself, which means whoever built the model knew the error was there. They patched the output but left the source wrong. She hesitated. If you present this tomorrow and any of the investors run their own analysis, they will, then they'll find the source error and the patch. And that looks worse than just having a mistake. Callum turned to look at her fully for the first time. Not the way men sometimes looked at her, evaluating, categorizing, but the way people looked at something that had surprised them, genuinely, without the instinct to conceal it. How do you know this? He said. Serena considered her options. She'd had practice at this particular crossroads. The moment where the truth was useful and the truth was also complicated, and she had to decide how much of herself to hand over to a stranger. I used to work in financial modeling, she said. Used to. I left the industry. He waited. He was, she noticed, someone who understood silence as a conversational tool. He didn't fill it. He let it sit there and do its work. Restructuring, she said. 2 years ago, my firm had a bad quarter, and then another bad quarter, and then they had a round of layoffs, and I was newer, and... She stopped. I'm banquet staff now. I'm not saying any of this I'm not angling for anything. I saw a number that was wrong, and I said so. Okay, he said. Just okay. Not performatively gracious, not skeptical, not the particular condescension she had gotten used to. The smile people gave when she said something technically competent and they were trying to decide whether to be impressed or suspicious. Just okay. Can you fix it? He said. Serena blinked. What? The model. Can you fix it before 9 o'clock? He glanced at his watch. We have about 6 hours. I'm not authorized to touch your financial documents. I'm authorizing you. You don't know me. I know you caught something my CFO built into this model and apparently hoped I wouldn't notice, Callum said. I know you just explained the mechanism of it to me accurately enough that I can verify it myself, and I know that in 6 hours I have to stand in front of people who have been waiting 18 months to watch me fail. He set down the empty coffee cup. So, can you fix it? Serena looked at the binder. She looked at the man. She thought about her shift starting at 7 and her lease and the particular math of surviving on banquet wages in a city where she used to have a different kind of math problem entirely. Do you have a laptop? She said. They worked at the head table until 5:30. Callum brought 2 laptops from his office upstairs and a pot of actual coffee. Not the banquet service version, but something from a small press on the credenza in his suite that tasted like it had opinions. Serena rebuilt the model from the Q3 base file which Callum found in the shared drive and pulled up without comment. She didn't explain her process out loud. She just worked the way she had always worked. Quiet, methodical, checking each cell twice and then checking the formula dependencies before moving forward. Callum sat beside her and watched, and occasionally she was aware of him in the way you were aware of someone trying very hard to be unobtrusive. You're not going to ask me questions? She said, around 4:15. You're concentrating. Most people would be nervous. Watching someone they just met rebuild their financial presentation at 4 in the morning. I'm nervous, Callum said. I'm just not demonstrating it. That surprised a short laugh out of her. She hadn't expected that. The directness, the lack of performance. She'd worked around a lot of finance people, and they had a particular way of inhabiting rooms, a gravitational quality that announced itself constantly. Callum Hart sat beside her like someone who had somewhere to be, and had decided the somewhere was here. The backup projection on tab 4 is also compromised, she said. Whoever built the error into the main model did the same thing in the sensitivity analysis. It's subtler there, I almost missed it. The silence that followed had a different quality. Derek Page built this model, Callum said. I don't know who Derek Page is. He's my CFO. He's been with the company for 11 years. Another pause. He has a meeting with representatives from Crestline Asset Management next week, on his own. Serena didn't say anything. She understood what she was hearing without needing it spelled out. She had been in rooms where that kind of information was currency, and she knew when someone was putting the pieces together out loud because they needed to hear them in sequence. How much would Crestline need the presentation to fail? She asked carefully. Enough. Callum stood up and walked to the window. The city outside was doing what cities did at 4:30 in the morning, that particular suspension between night and early, where everything looked provisional. Enough that an 11-year relationship with my CFO starts to make a different kind of sense. I'm sorry, Serena said. Don't be. He didn't say it unkindly. Just fix the model. She fixed the model. At 5:45, she ran the final check, every cell, every dependency, every formula pulling from the source data correctly. The revenue projections were conservative but defensible. The debt-to-equity ratio was accurate. The sensitivity analysis held under 3 different market scenarios. It's clean, she said. Callum came back to the table and looked at the screen for a long time. Then he looked at her. What's your background, he said. Formally, finance degree from Ohio State. CFA, though it's lapsed. I didn't keep up the continuing education hours after the layoff because the fees were. She stopped. Anyway, it's lapsed. It can be reinstated. I know. Why haven't you? Serena closed the laptop. It was a fair question, and she had thought about it enough times that she had a version of the answer that was true, but not complete. When I left the industry, I thought it would be temporary. And then it wasn't. And after a while, she paused. There's a version of going back that feels like admitting something. I haven't decided yet what I'm admitting to. Callum nodded slowly. He had the quality, she was noticing, of someone who listened to the thing under the words rather than just the words. Admitting that you needed the industry, he said, or that the industry doesn't deserve you back. She looked at him. He looked back, just even, just steady. I should go home, she said. My shift starts at 7. I need to ask you something first. If it's about staying for the presentation, it's not. He paused. Do you want to know what I'm about to offer you so you can say no efficiently, or do you want to hear it? Serena stood up and put her jacket on. I want to hear it, she said, which was honest, and which she was already half regretting. The 9 o'clock presentation went cleanly. Serena knew this because she was back in the ballroom at 7, setting up for a corporate breakfast on the other side of the partition, and she could hear the register of the room through the folding wall. The quality of the questions, the occasional pause that meant something was being written down instead of challenged. No one came through the partition. No one from the investment side found an error. The CFO, Derek Page, she still hadn't seen him, knew him only as a function in a spreadsheet, did not appear to know the model had been corrected. That much was clear from the confidence in his voice when he answered the questions about sensitivity analysis in the presentation Serena had rebuilt from scratch 7 hours earlier. She went home at 2. She slept for 4 hours. She came back for the evening shift. There was an envelope at the banquet manager's desk with her name on it. Inside was a card, and on the card, in handwriting that was precise and slightly angular, was a phone number and 4 words, when you're ready. CH, no offer letter, no formal proposal, no salary figure, which would have made it easier to dismiss. Just the acknowledgement that there was something to consider and the patience to let her consider it. She put the card in her jacket pocket and went to set up for a retirement dinner on the 3rd floor. The problem arrived 11 days later in the form of a Wall Street Journal article about the Whitmore Capital Group investor event. It was complimentary. It quoted unnamed sources describing the presentation as unexpectedly rigorous. It mentioned Derek Page by name in the 3rd paragraph, with a quote about the company's financial strategy. Serena read it on her phone during a break, sitting in the back stairwell with a cup of coffee. She read the paragraph about Derek Page twice. She thought about column G and the patch in column K, and the meeting with Crestline Asset Management that Callum had mentioned at 4:30 in the morning with the particular flatness of someone absorbing a betrayal in real time. She called the number on the card. Callum answered on the 2nd ring. Did you see the journal piece? She asked. Yes, your CFO is quoted. I know. Has anything happened with? She didn't know how to finish that sentence delicately. With the Crestline situation, we're managing it. A pause. He resigned this morning. I didn't ask for it. He just did. Another pause. I think he knew I knew. I think he's been waiting for the other shoe. I'm sorry, Serena said, and meant it more completely this time. Are you ready? Callum asked. For what specifically? For the thing I didn't specify 11 days ago. Serena leaned back against the stair railing. The fire door above her swung open and 2 waitstaff walked through talking about a catering order, and she waited for them to pass. You want to hire me, she said. I want to offer you a position on the financial analysis team, with the understanding that if the CFA reinstatement is a barrier, the company will cover the fees and the continuing education hours, and with the understanding that the work you did at 3 in the morning in my ballroom is the actual baseline I'm hiring from, not whatever your resume says about 2 years ago. Serena didn't say anything for a moment. That's a significant offer, she said. I'm aware. I've been out of the industry for 2 years. I know. People will ask questions. About the gap, people will ask me questions, Callum corrected, and I'll answer them. That's my job. She heard something in his voice then, not persuasion, not the specific register of someone selling something. Just the quiet of someone who had already made up their mind and was waiting to see if she'd made up hers. I need to think about it, she said. Take the time, it might be more than a few days. That's fine. A beat. For what it's worth, and I recognize you didn't ask. Watching you work that night was the first time in 4 years I felt like I was looking at someone I could trust. He said it without ornamentation, just accurate. That's a specific thing, I don't take it lightly. Serena closed her eyes for a second. Outside the stair railing was a window, and through the window was the city, and the city was full of the particular noise of daytime. Traffic and construction and 1,000 small decisions happening simultaneously. I'll call you tomorrow, she said. She called him the next morning. She said yes. He said good. Neither of them made it more than that, because neither of them were people who made things more than they needed to be. 3 weeks later, sitting in a glass-walled conference room on the 14th floor of a building she had once passed every morning. On her way to a different job, Serena Voss opened a financial model on a new company laptop and began checking cells from the top left, moving right, the way she always had. The analyst sitting across the table, a young man named Preston who had clearly been briefed to be helpful and was working very hard at it, watched her for a moment and then said, "Is there a particular issue you're looking for, or?" "No," Serena said. "I just start from the beginning." Preston nodded. He had the look of someone filing away a piece of information he wasn't sure what to do with yet. Serena recognized it. She'd had it herself, years ago, before she understood that some people checked from the beginning not because they expected to find something wrong, but because that was the only way to be sure nothing was. Callum stopped in the doorway at 11:30, coffee in hand. A different cup than the 4 a.m. version, but the same particular set to his shoulders, the same quality of alertness that was not urgency but something adjacent to it. He looked at the screen, then at her. "Column G," he said. "Clean," she said. He nodded once, and left. Preston watched him go and then looked at Serena with an expression that was somewhere between confusion and the beginning of understanding. "Does that mean something?" he asked. "Column G?" Serena looked at the screen. At the numbers sitting right on the page, the way numbers were supposed to sit when nothing had been hidden and nothing had been patched, and the source was clean all the way down. "It means we're good," she said, and kept working.